If it were possible to OD on virtual sweets, then Kirby's Dream Buffet would be the start of a legitimate health crisis, as I just want to eat up every one of these delicious looking stages that are jam-packed with delectable delights. So it's probably a good thing that we have Kirby to act as a proxy. I just hope for his sake they have good healthcare in Dreamland. Okay, so Kirby's Dream Buffet is kind of like Nintendo's version of Fall Guys, in that it's a cute and chaotic multiplayer competition that takes place across a series of challenges called the Gourmet Grand Prix. But unlike Fall Guys, this one's only 4 players, and the goal isn't just to survive, but instead is about eating as many berries as possible to become the biggest and heaviest Kirby you can. Oh, and it ain't free either, though it basically is by Nintendo standards at $15. So the Gourmet Grand Prix is basically the entirety of the game, and it consists of 4 random berry collecting challenges, but they always come in the same basic order, being 2 obstacle-filled races with a minigame sandwich between them, before concluding with a Battle Royale that puts everyone's berries on the line. This eclectic gameplay mix keeps things fun and frantic, especially since there's barely any downtime between rounds. Plus, there's a decent amount of stages that can randomly appear for each challenge, making it highly unlikely you'll ever see the same order twice. Now, while I do like the amount of variety here, the races are definitely my favorite type, which kind of works out considering they make up half of every Grand Prix. And what I like about them is that it isn't just about being first place, though that certainly helps so you can climb the biggest berry mountain for yourself at the end, but it's really more about finding and eating as many berries as you can along the way, as not only do they make you bigger and faster, but they're ultimately the only thing that matters in the end. And trying to grab as many as you can while navigating the sweets-filled obstacle courses just makes for a fun time, even if just staying on the path can be a little tricky, especially online, which I'll explain more later. The entire thing has a fast but loose feel to it that have you slipping, sliding, and bumping all over the place as you race across narrow bridges, rotating platforms, and through a ton of food-based obstacles. Like Fall Guys, it's hard to ever be 100% sure which route might be best, and your overall position can change in an instant, especially since the courses are cleverly designed to keep players relatively close together, such as how these cookie walls will slow down the leading players until it's destroyed, or how these zip pads can only be accessed by the smaller, slower Kirbys. It's pretty clever stuff and ensures it's almost always a mad dash to the finish line to reach the biggest of the berry mountains. But of course, what would a Kirby game be without copy abilities? This time in the form of food copy abilities that you find in Mario Kart-like item boxes. And it can range from things like a burning pepper that'll have you rocket across the stage, to a hyper tornado that'll suck up any berries nearby, or a jiggly jelly that lets you phase through enemies or walls like a T-1000. Heck yeah! And like with Mario Kart, the farther behind you are, the better copy abilities you'll probably get, such as with a high jump gummy that'll help launch you right back into the action. Or you might even end up with multiples of the same one at a time. But conversely, if you're near the front of the pack, you'd better prepare to find item boxes that are just a handful of strawberries, which can be a little annoying at times, just like those freaking coins in Mario Kart. Now, for as much as I enjoy the races, they aren't without their own frustrations, because touching just about anything, whether it's an enemy, obstacle, or sometimes a fellow Kirby, will instantly knock you back and really slow your roll. And it's exacerbated by the complete lack of camera control, making it nearly impossible to avoid being attacked from the rear. Now, I'm sure this is all by design, as it does help level the playing field for those in the back, but that doesn't make it any less frustrating when it happens to you. Oddly, every race inexplicably begins with 8 opponents, as 4 computer-controlled Waddle Dees also come along for the ride, although they don't do a whole lot besides making the start of a race a bit bouncier. It's almost as if the game originally intended to support 8 players at once, and I kind of wish it had been, as it would make the races just a little livelier instead of relying on the brain-dead Dees. But to be fair, the minigames and Battle Royale challenges arguably more than make up for that fact when it comes to pure chaos. Because as I mentioned already, each Grand Prix has one minigame sandwiched between the 2 races, and they're always based around some kind of simple objective like breaking the most boxes or taking out the most enemies, all in an effort to earn the most berries. But although it sounds simple, there's so much happening on screen that it's tough to track where you are or what's even happening at times. And that's probably why the minigames are my least favorite aspect of Kirby's Dream Buffet. But within the grander context of the overall Grand Prix, they work well enough to break up the racing action. Now, every Grand Prix also concludes with a Battle Royale, and this is where things go completely bonkers. Emphasis on the bonk. Here it's all about knocking your opponents out of the stage to deplete their berry count while desperately trying to hold on to your own. For better or worse, the copy abilities basically guarantee a one-hit KO, which means you'll likely find yourself being knocked out a lot, especially if you happen to be in first place. And not just because the crown makes you a bigger target, but also because you're literally a bigger target. And the farther ahead you are, the more berries you're liable to lose when being knocked out, which helps balance out the action so even those who started way behind can potentially catch up. Now initially, like the minigames, I found the Battle Royales to be a little bit too chaotic, The small arenas and copy abilities that appear here, like the hyper-annoying stone chocolate which creates a massive shockwave that's really hard to dodge, made the entire thing feel a little too random. But after playing it more and getting more used to it, I've come to realize that there can be actual strategy here, even if there's still a good amount of luck involved. And it's actually kind of thrilling how it puts everything on the line, which gives everyone a fighting chance to claw their way to victory, even if they started as a total underdog, or under Kirby. It's the exact type of chaotic energy that one would expect from a Nintendo Battle Royale. And I especially enjoy the greater context that having a Grand Prix adds to the berry collecting concept. And it's a good thing that the Grand Prix format works because that's pretty much all there is to this game, outside of choosing to play a one-off single race, minigame, or Battle Royale. You can't even choose specific stages, even when playing one as a one-off, as it's always decided randomly, which is a tad annoying. There's also no story mode here, time trials, or anything else. It really is based entirely around the Grand Prix format. The only other thing of note here is the surprising amount of collectibles, because not only do you gain random awards after every single race, but you'll also unlock new features every time you level up, which usually takes between 2 to 4 races. And with 135 ranks, there's a lot to unlock. This includes things like adorable costumes, Kirby colors, awesome music from Kirby's past, and even entirely new stages. These rewards are actually pretty darn cool, especially the ones they can show off online. And to that point, considering that they span the entirety of the Kirby series, it makes for one heck of a way to celebrate Kirby's 30th anniversary, which is nice to see. Now, although the game is primarily designed for online play, you actually can play the entire thing offline too, either by yourself or with a friend in split screen, with AI filling in for the rest of the opponents. You can even earn points and unlock everything regardless of how you play, although you do get a bonus amount of points for playing online. Furthermore, you can play with 4 players locally if everyone has their own Switch and copy of the game. But sadly, it doesn't support anything more than 2 players on the same screen, which is a bit of a bummer when you consider Mario Kart already pulled it off on the same system, and even past Kirby racing games have 2 on inferior hardware. So given that limitation, going online is definitely my preferred way of playing, because taking on the CPUs just isn't the same. And I appreciate they can easily matchmake with strangers or create private lobbies for anyone who knows the passcode. Unfortunately, there is one big drawback to playing online, and that's the fact that the online experience has been wildly inconsistent for me. Now, at the best of times, it plays almost as well as it does offline, even if there is always at least a small amount of input delay. But there are many other times when the input delay can be terrible, with Kirby feeling slow and unresponsive, which makes navigating some of the trickier sections a complete nightmare in Dreamland. And that problem can persist even when the game looks like it's otherwise playing fine. Although there were still moments where it would turn into a complete slideshow too, but that thankfully wasn't a frequent occurrence. Furthermore, I hate how the game queues up jump commands if you tap the button while in the air, making Kirby automatically jump again the moment he touches down, even if you don't want him to. It can make Kirby feel borderline out of control at times compared to the lengthy input delay. Otherwise, the presentation is pretty fantastic. The food-filled stages all look delicious, and I appreciate the smaller details, like how Kirby leaves a visible path when rolling through cream or frosting, and how he progressively gets more of it on him as he does so too. Also, the music is simply delightful, featuring a ton of jovial tracks that fit right in alongside the rest of the Kirby series. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to performance, although it is mostly stable, the game only runs at 30 frames per second, when 60 would have definitely been a better fit for an arcade-like experience such as this. Those issues aside, Kirby's Dream Buffet can be a pretty sweet time, even if or perhaps because of it being an overall simple experience. The focus on collecting berries across an entire Grand Prix offers a fun twist on the typical racing and Battle Royale genres. And even though it may not be the deepest game around, the entire thing can still be strangely addictive, especially with a vast amount of fun unlocks available. But there are definitely moments where it can be frustrating too, whether it's the occasionally annoying bouncy physics, or being one-hit KO during Battle Royales. But like the sweets and desserts the game so prominently features, Kirby's Dream Buffet is probably best enjoyed in small doses, as there isn't a whole lot else to munch on here, which is perfectly understandable for a $15 title. So on the whole, I like Kirby's Dream Buffet, at least when the online wasn't driving me up a wall. And there you have it, GameXplain's review of Kirby's Dream Buffet. But how have you been enjoying the game yourself? Let us know by posting in the comments below. And with that, thanks for watching, and of course make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Kirby's Dream Buffet and everything else Nintendo Switch. We'll catch you later. Bye everyone!